Something shifted last night, and if you're hearing this, that shift is already touching something inside you. After the supermoon, there's a message moving through the quiet places of your life. Small things you thought were done may be opening. Old patterns that felt permanent might be loosening, and decisions you made without much fanfare are beginning to count in ways you didn't expect. Don't miss this crucial message that affects you. I'll tell you exactly what to watch for, why it matters, and what to do next to protect that movement. If this resonates with you, tap subscribe so you don't miss the next update. Imagine for a moment that your life is a garden. For months, maybe years, you've been planting, sometimes thoughtfully, sometimes almost absent-mindedly. A kind word, an extra hour practicing, the restraint to not say what would have burned a bridge, the small savings tucked away, the days you showed up even when no one noticed. The supermoon doesn't sow new seeds. It doesn't invent fruit out of thin air. What it tends to do, symbolically, energetically, is act like a spotlight over that garden. It can illuminate what you have been tending. It can warm the soil where intention has actually taken root. Suddenly, what was invisible starts to look like something that will bear weight. When we talk about returns being activated, we're not making a scientific claim about celestial mechanics. Think of it as a symbolic accelerator, a moment when the patterns you've been building start producing echoes in the outer world. That echo can look like an offer you weren't expecting, a reconnection with someone who left, an idea that finally finds listeners, or even a quiet confidence that settles into your bones. It tends to favor what you invested in patiently, the kindness, the discipline, the small acts of courage. Those are the kinds of things that often come back to you in this window. Not everyone will feel fireworks. For many, the moon's influence arrives as a hush, a kind of backstage stillness before the curtain. It's the sort of quiet that feels heavy with potential, the calm where plans reorient themselves beneath the surface. You might notice that conversations go quieter, that you spend more time alone by choice, or that days that used to be noisy feel softer. That silence is not a void. It is an active reconfiguration of energy. The world is rearranging to fit the version of you that has been forming in small, persistent ways. One of the clearest things to expect now is clearing. If something peeled away recently, a friendship that drifted, a job that stalled, a plan that dissolved, it's tempting to interpret that as punishment or failure. But there's another reading that may serve you better. What disappeared was not always meant to stay beside you for the next chapter. As your priorities shift, certain people, places, and habits simply won't align. Distance can be protection. Separation can be course correction. A closed door can be the universe's unglamorous but honest way of saying, this path no longer supports the life you're building. Let me give you 3 concrete scenarios you might recognize and how to reframe each one. First, a friend goes quiet. Maybe someone who used to text every week now answers slowly or stops initiating plans. At first, it stings. You imagine scenes where you've been betrayed or wronged. Pause. What if their silence is actually a boundary being set, by them or by the changing requirements of your life? Your growth demands different rhythms. The friendship that fit a previous version of you might not fit the one that's emerging. That doesn't mean you failed. It means you're being moved into a different ecosystem. Second, a project you expected to launch suddenly stalls or dissolves. You had momentum, paperwork, energy. Then things stopped. Before you assume it's a loss, consider that this clearing may be creating the space for a more authentic opportunity. The plan that disintegrated might have been the comfortable path, not the right one. When something breaks in a noisy, catalytic way, it often makes room for something that aligns more honestly with who you are becoming. Third, a romantic relationship feels distant or someone drifts away. It's easy to assign blame, to tell yourself you weren't enough or that love failed you. Reframe. The relationship could be releasing you because it's no longer in service to the life you are moving toward. Separation can be an act of mercy, by the other person, by life, or by your own inner wisdom, so that you can meet a version of yourself that requires different company. Not everything that departs is an indictment. Not every silence indicates abandonment. Some losses are gentle excavations, removing what blocks the flow to what better fits. Keep repeating this. Not everything that disappears is lost. Sometimes the removal makes you lighter for what is coming. There is another layer here, identity completion. Think of the supermoon as a punctuation mark at the end of a long sentence you have been writing with your life choices. For a long time, you may have been carrying an identity that felt necessary. The dependable friend, the caretaker, the person who says yes because they fear the cost of no. Over many small moments, you've been loosening that old coat. This lunar-tinged window tends to reveal just how close you are to stepping fully into a newer version of yourself. You may find tendencies within you that suddenly feel incongruent. Reactions that once defined you fade. Habits you thought you needed no longer serve. That narrowing down, the subtraction of what you're not, can reveal with surprising clarity who you are. This is not dramatic makeover energy. It's quieter. It's like a scalpel. It cuts away what doesn't belong so the structure underneath can be seen. That structure is often sturdier, more focused, and less available for compromise. The moon's symbolic nudge tends to make the emerging self impossible to ignore. You may find yourself resisting old scripts with less exertion. You may discover an internal compass that points truer than before. A crucial and often overlooked consequence of the recent window is what I call the lock-in phase. Imagine that fate or future isn't a single loud decree, but a series of votes, and each micro-decision you make is a ballot. In the days surrounding the supermoon, those micro-decisions, the tiny, almost invisible choices, gain disproportionate weight. Saying no to one invitation, allowing yourself a full night of sleep, replying honestly to a difficult message, choosing to stop defending yourself, these acts accumulate and begin to bind your timeline together. Small choices become energetically permanent in ways they weren't before. They don't erase agency, but they do create a trajectory that is harder to reverse casually. Here are micro-decisions you may already have made without thinking that now are anchoring things. You stopped tolerating disrespect. You scheduled a weekly block for your creative work. You stopped checking one person's profile. You started paying attention to your mental health. Those tiny decisions resonate beyond their immediate circumstances. They act like anchors that hold the ship while the currents change. Notice them, honor them. They are the scaffolding of the next phase. If you're wondering how to tell whether something is an activated return, a protective clearing, or a locked-in micro-decision, here are practical signs to watch for in the coming days and weeks. These are not guarantees, only patterns people often report in windows like this. First sign, opportunities aligning. These tend to feel like small doors opening in the right places. A conversation that leads to new contacts, an invitation that unexpectedly fits your calendar, a client who values something you make. These openings often come quietly at first. They are not always accompanied by fanfare. They are more like gentle taps on the shoulder. Second sign, people reappearing or drifting. Both can be meaningful. Someone coming back might indicate that the pattern between you was recalibrated. Someone drifting away may reveal a misalignment that could have cost you future movement. Either way, these shifts clarify who belongs in your next chapter. Third sign, renewed clarity and confidence. You might wake up less anxious about choices that used to rattle you. Decisions that took hours of rumination now land with a small, quiet certainty. That is a sign your inner architecture is rearranging to support what matters more. When these signs appear, your response matters. There are 3 practical orientations I want you to adopt now. Observe, protect, and reinforce. Observe. This is a season for attention, not frantic action. Watch the way your environment responds to you. Keep a short log. Nothing fancy, just a list of moments that feel like echoes of your recent choices. Who texted, what offer arrived, what request got denied. At the end of the week, read those lines back to yourself. Patterns show up in lists more clearly than in the fog of daily life. Protect. Energy protection is not mystical, it is practical. It looks like boundaries, it looks like saying no when you mean no, it looks like limiting exposure to people or spaces that drain you, and it looks like guarding your attention against reactive scrolling and noise. Protecting your time and attention helps the subtle changes settle in rather than being smeared thin across too many competing demands. Reinforce. Once you recognize a micro-decision that aligns with the life you're cultivating, reinforce it. Make a small ritual to honor that choice. Mark it on your calendar, tell one trusted person, or create a tiny signal, a bracelet, a note, a habit that reminds you this choice matters. Reinforcement doesn't have to be loud. It just needs repetition. Here are 3 specific, simple practices you can do right now to translate the symbolic momentum into tangible progress. First practice, journal 3 small decisions. In the last 30 days, what are 3 things you did that felt inconsequential at the time but now feel like they changed you? Write them down. For each, add 1 sentence. Because of that decision, I noticed. This is your audit of activated returns. Keep this list somewhere visible and add to it as new micro-decisions happen. Second practice, boundary and energy check. Choose one relationship or commitment that has felt heavy. Ask yourself, am I here because of obligation, fear, or genuine alignment? If it's more often obligation or fear, practice a micro-boundary this week. That might look like reducing time spent, shifting the conversation, or saying, I need to pause on this. See if the space you create invites clarity instead of guilt. Third practice, one intentional small action. Pick something that will reinforce the trajectory you want. An email to a potential collaborator, a short outline of a project you've been putting off, a conversation with someone who could support your next step, or a full day's rest to reset. Make it tiny enough that you can't talk yourself out of it, and then do it within 48 hours. There is also an emotional practice I want you to try. Sit with silence for 5 minutes today. No devices, no playlists, no background noise. Breathe slowly and notice what surfaces. You may find discomfort, relief, grief, or clarity. Say to yourself, I am listening to where I am being steered. This is not passive, it's active attunement. Quiet is often the first place where the new version of you announces itself. Now, for those who are tempted to parse everything through one lens, remember that the moon, or any symbolic moment, isn't an external bully that forces your hand. These shifts are co-created. The images and metaphors help you make sense of internal movements that were already underway. Think of the supermoon as a mirror that exaggerates what you already carried. Your work is to notice what's reflected and choose accordingly. One practical way to keep clarity in this window is to run a simple weekly check-in with yourself. On one small index card or a single note on your phone, answer 3 questions. What did I choose this week that felt like a small, courageous act? What left my life or changed? What one tiny step do I take next to reinforce this new direction? This habit takes less than 5 minutes a week and is powerful precisely because it trains your attention to see trajectories rather than being trapped in immediate drama. Let me walk you through a hypothetical example so this feels less abstract. Picture someone named Maya. For months, she had been choosing to wake up an hour earlier to write, but she never told anyone and rarely posted anything. She also began declining weekend invitations more often, which made some friends notice. Around the supermoon, an editor reached out to her because a mutual acquaintance had seen a short piece she posted months ago. Simultaneously, one friend stopped initiating meetups, and a 2-year side project with a partner quietly dissolved. If Maya reads these events as random, hurtful slights, she might chase reconnection or try to resurrect the project. If instead, she reads them as signs that her small investments are materializing and that some associations no longer match her path, she can protect her energy long enough to respond with intention. She says yes to the editor, she mourns the drifting friend without trying to force closeness, and she releases the project that never fit to make space for a bigger alignment. Those micro-decisions, continuing to write, saying yes to aligned opportunities, and saying no to misaligned ones, start to lock in a different timeline. You might be thinking, what if I miss the window? What if nothing obvious happened for me? 2 points. First, not every change arrives with immediate evidence. Sometimes the most potent work is internal, a subtle realignment you barely notice until weeks later when your life looks different. Second, windows like this are rarely a single night. The energy of a supermoon can ripple for days or weeks. And symbolic catalysts tend to repeat their lessons. The important thing is that you pay attention and build habits that let you take advantage of future tipping points. A question that often comes up is, should I try to force momentum? The short answer, avoid forcing. There's a big difference between disciplined action and frantic pushing. Discipline is consistent, grounded action aligned with your values. Forcing is bending your life toward a plan that refuses to be supported by reality. If something feels like it's asking to be coaxed gently, a relationship you want to repair, a project that can be revised, invest wisely. If something is resisting, consider whether resistance is a signal to pivot rather than a defect to be fixed. As you move through the next weeks, watch for what I call early access signs. They are subtle indicators that you are gaining a head start on the coming cycle. Early access signs include an idea that feels larger than your current capacity but lights you up, people showing up who match the caliber of your fresh ambitions, financial shifts that begin as incremental adjustments, or a deepened sense of ease around choices that once made you anxious. These are not guarantees of smooth sailing. They are invitations to prepare and to steward what is being seeded. Finally, I want to center an essential piece of reassurance. Change can feel like loss even when it is mercy. Your life might rearrange in ways that hurt, and that is okay. The grief that accompanies necessary endings is part of the clearing process. Allow space for it. Honor the parts of your identity that feel mourned. And alongside that grief, make room for curiosity about what the clearing enables. To close, remember the core of this message. The supermoon acted as an interpretive amplifier more than a creator of outcomes. It highlights the returns on what you've invested. It catalyzes protective clearing. It makes quiet preparation visible, and it signals that small decisions you've made are beginning to set your path. This window asks you to observe with care, protect what matters, and reinforce the small acts that anchor the future. Before you go, do one quick thing. Take a single sheet of paper and write 3 lines. Line 1, one tiny decision you made recently that feels honest. Line 2, one thing that left or shifted in the same period. Line 3, one small action you will take in the next 48 hours to reinforce your direction. Keep that paper where you can see it. If you've noticed any of these patterns, returns activating, protective separation, quiet realignment, share one in the comments below. Your experience may help someone else read their own signs. If this message landed with you, subscribe for more insights that help translate symbolic momentum into practical next steps. You're in a moment of realignment. Notice it, protect it, reinforce it. The next chapter is being seeded now, and whether it blooms loudly or quietly, your attention is what helps it grow.